This matchup between Washington and Pittsburgh did not disappoint. This one ended 28-27 Steelers. They had a huge touchdown late in the game, but seems like everybody's kind of talking about two plays. This fourth down for Washington, which may or may not have been a first down. And then, of course, the rookie Newton jumping off sides at the end to give the Steelers a first down to end it. But besides that, man, this was a really good game. Definitely lived up to the hype. And I think the Steelers probably proved a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, they got me. I picked the Commanders here. Figured it'd be a close game, but definitely took it the other direction. And they were able to pull off, some of the stuff that people have been failing to do against the Commanders, which is, force some of these turnovers and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you'll have, if you were looking at my little note sheet here, which me and Terrence can see, got a lot of jokes about how we always talk about the Steelers with their dark magic, getting to do everything every season. I don't know. This season it just kind of feels like they're a good football team again. So
Yeah.
I'll keep those jokes on the low for this one. But yeah, I mean, look at it on paper. This was a great game. Definitely a little more of a normal football game than the Lions and Texans game. Russell Wilson went 14 for 28, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Pretty good there. And obviously, as you talked about Newton jumping at the end, Russ definitely got him on the call. He did a little celebratory dance after that. So I included that here in Russ's stats as just kind of forcing the penalty there at the end. Jaylen Warren led the Steelers on the ground with 66 yards. He did have a fumble. Najee Harris was close behind Warren with 53 yards on the ground and a touchdown. George Pickens led them in the air with 91 yards and a touchdown. He also had some kind of funny highlights in this game where he just looked like fueled by rage and anger, like on the pick. But that's different. Mike Williams got 132-yard reception for a touchdown. A lot of people have been talking about the fact that he did that after leaving Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers lost bad last night. Not correlated, but football is all about stories. Pat Freiermuth got himself a touchdown. He had a pretty good game. And then Ben Skowronek recovered an Olamide Zaccheaus fumble. For the Commanders, as Mike Tomlin put it in his post-game interview, Jaden Daniels should not be compared to Mr. Jackson. So I think less of a hatred point to Jaden Daniels and more of Mike Tomlin saying, like, we got to be careful on comparing people to a multi-time MVP like Lamar Jackson. Still, Jaden, there's some comp there. Not a whole lot in this game, especially on the dual threat side. Jaden goes 17 for 34, 202 yards, only racks up 5 yards on the ground. He's not really able to do much. Doesn't carry too many times either. Austin Eckler led them on the ground with 44 yards. He was the highest on the team. Had 2 touchdowns there. Jeremy McNichols was second with 7 yards and a touchdown. So, Steelers defense definitely holding them low on yards as a whole. Terry McLaurin was the entire passing game. He brought in 113 of Jaden's 202 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus fumbled twice. He only lost one of them. Jeremy Chin, former Panther, had a pretty good day. 13 total tackles. He had the fumble recovery for Jaylen Warren, and he had the interception on Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson. And then, as we both talked about here, we can get to the fourth down play as well, where they rule Zach Ertz is short of the line. But Jason Newton, the rookie, does get fooled by Russ on the end of the Steelers drive there. Clearly they're not going to go for it. Mike Tomlin, when asked about that, said, like, I guess we'll never know. So, what's he supposed to say there? But clearly, like, they're just trying to get you to jump. And, Newton jumps very, very clearly. Watching the play, you can just see him super, like, it's not a subtle move. Like, he goes straight at him. Easy penalty to call. You could see the other Commanders players, like, dropping their hands to their heads. And then Russ went and did his little celebratory dance. So, tough ending for a game for the Commanders that, they were doing pretty good. They were pretty locked in. Slipped up a little bit towards the end, allowed that touchdown. Then they had it turned over on downs, as we'll talk about. And then, a few plays later, you have Newton jump and get that neutral zone infraction penalty, and that's game. Steelers take this one. They move to 7-2. That's big for them. They hold on to the top of the division because of Baltimore's third loss. And similarly, Washington falls to 7-3. They fall under Philadelphia because they're 7-3 and Philadelphia 7-2. So big result there. Washington trying to stay in this playoff race as the Eagles surge. They just beat the brakes out of Dallas this weekend. And Baltimore, got that 7th win, as we talked about with the Bengals. So Pittsburgh and Washington both really needed this one, and Pittsburgh comes out with it.
Yeah, I would think that the Steelers weren't going to go for it. I mean, Mike Tomlin's going to say what he says, but it's always easier to get a team to jump, downs 1 through 3 instead of on fourth down. Like they're not going to run a play, but he's a rookie. He's going to learn that. It was just a mistake and a horrible time. And look, that even the fourth down play with Zach Ertz, honestly, I feel like they probably could have called that a first down. Like, I mean, when his knee goes down, but he's not touched, and that's what they were going through on the broadcast. As he's turning, it's got to be where the ball is. It looks like the ball was probably, I mean, maybe it wasn't on the yellow line, but it felt like it was on the line to gain. But, maybe it wasn't. I mean, it was supposed to be the 41, and it looked like the ball was there at least whenever he got touched, but they just don't have but so many angles to show. So you kind of have to just piece together. And I guess when they pieced it together, it didn't, make sense there. So it is what it is. But the game didn't come down to that one play or the offsides by
Yeah.
Newton either. Like, Washington should have put this game away drives before that. Like they had that huge interception by Jeremy Chin. Like you mentioned, George Pickens. Like, I don't know what. I'm not sure what George Pickens was going with there with the defender. The defender might have come at him first. Like, I couldn't really tell, but either way, like after getting that interception, unfortunately, he ran down, but then they called it back. Because they actually said he got touchdown right when he caught it. So that was almost a field's worth of yards there that they didn't get. But even then, they didn't really capitalize off the turnover because I guess in the end it was really just a punt. It's third down. They're at their own, 26 at that point. So like, who really cares there? But they didn't, they made the way down the field, but they didn't capitalize, didn't get a score off of it. And then the Steelers have a really good drive getting all the way down. And Jalen Warren fumbles, which, again, broadcast, they came and said, like, maybe they should have called for the progress there. And maybe they should have, but they didn't. I guess maybe because he was kind of moving to the left and they want to let the play keep going, but they didn't call forward progress. It's a fumble. So now you get the ball, but you're backed up at your own 1 yard line. So now it really should have been a safety too on the holding on TJ Watt. They didn't call that. And I don't want to make this entire game about the rest, but there are like some questionable moments with the rest in this one, in key pivotal moments of this game. And again, they didn't capitalize. They punted. Steelers get pretty good field position. Then you had that big touchdown of Mike Williams, like you said, coming over from New York. And of course, whenever these guys, like Deontay Johnson just came over to the Ravens, like whenever these guys are moving, they're not going to get that much playing time initially, but he made the most of his getting that touchdown. And like, I just feel that was kind of the game there. And I know Washington, they had 2.5 minutes left to go down, and all they needed was a field goal. But the momentum, I think, at that point just completely swung to the Steelers. And again, they don't get that first down. They jump off sides. That's the game. But I think this one is just, I don't think it's really all about the refs because, again, there are possibly bad calls on both sides. And I think them not capitalizing on these opportunities and really not putting pedal to the metal after they went up 24-14. Because that first score coming out of halftime, I was like, man, Steelers, even if they're down 10, and as much as the Steelers' offense has improved, I don't know if they, being down 10 at this point with the way Washington had looked on their last 3 drives, I don't know if that was something they're going to overcome, but they did. And even in the game where it wasn't like Russell Wilson, he had 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't like the greatest game for him.
No.
Washington D-line, that front 7 there on top of him. I mean, his D-line and his front 7 were on top of Jaden Daniels. So not like it's the greatest passing game for either team. But in the end, man, I mean, Washington didn't capitalize on those opportunities, and a couple of mistakes cost them the win.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make some commentary on the refs side. I mean, there's definitely some things that happen. It does suck when it's like on these like crucial moments towards the end of the games. But Washington also definitely runs out of steam and kind of hands this one away. They're on fire to end the first half. They come out in the second half, 5 plays, 71 yards, 2 minutes, boom, it's 24-14. And then, the Steelers slow it down. And they move, on a 5-minute drive, 75 yards, march down the field, make it 21-24. And now, this is a crucial moment. This is when Washington has got to answer back, even if it's just a field goal to try to, keep the score moving a little bit. Instead, they go 3 and out in less than a minute. The Steelers go 4 and out in just over a minute, and then you get a big drive from Washington, or not a big drive, a 3-minute drive where they do end up getting a field goal, and then we get to what you talked about, where the Steelers throw this big pick. George Pickens goes a little crazy. Washington not able to capitalize, goes 12 yards, has to punt it, and then controversial fumble. That's another moment where you can at least try to hold on to the score, take some time off the clock. Instead, you take up 1 minute, you go 3 plays, 3 and out, you punt it. Then you get a 3-minute drive against you. And a 32-yard reception, the type of catch it was, it was just a crazy play. It does feel like all it took was that touchdown to Mike Williams to kind of suck the energy away from Washington. And so they get the ball back, and maybe a little controversial there for them to not get the 4th down play, but it did feel like they had just kind of stalled out long before that. There wasn't much left of what was there in the first half. So a little tough. I think that the Steelers defense is definitely one that can cause you to, even if you have a really hot moment in a game, to end up cooling off pretty quickly. And that's what happens to Washington here. It's a great offense, and they're usually a pretty well-oiled machine. But this is certainly one of the tougher defenses they've had to face, and I think eventually you just get worn down. Some things don't go your way, and maybe it got in their heads a little bit, and they slip up in this one, lose it by a point. So not as an entirely catastrophic result. Pittsburgh, like I said, it's going to love this one. They get to move. They get to hold on to the top of the AFC North. Washington, faltering a little bit here, slipping up under the top of the NFC East, but definitely not out of the playoff contention by any means. So not the worst result, not a bad team to lose to. Mike Tomlin has got this defense pretty strong. It's pretty normal. But most importantly for the Steelers, and this is what I thought from watching the second half especially, is Mike Tomlin has got this offense rolling again a lot more than it has been. So we saw it in the beginning. You had Justin Fields kind of getting out there. Then he made the decision to put Russ in, and everyone's thinking, is this a good idea? And since he's put Russ in, I think the Steelers offense has been a little more fluid, a little more explosive. So yeah, I think the Steelers are definitely an actual contender. I will continue to make the little jokes about Mike Tomlin and his evil wizardry sometimes, but I do think this season he's got the roster together. They made a big move for Mike Williams. I think that's going to continue to be good for them if Mike Williams can stay healthy and kind of just lock in with Russ. So yeah, I think the Steelers look good on both sides of the ball. They look like a tough team. The AFC North remains a battleground, and I think the Steelers will be a pretty strong playoff contender. I think the Commanders will too, but this is just a tough matchup. Not a bad one to lose, but a lot of things to look back on here and go, ooh, we really messed up that second half.